This episode of the Sartorial Geek podcast is sponsored by Jordan Dene. Jordan Dene has all kinds of geek chic apparel and accessories. Our designs are hand-lettered and inspired by our favorite characters and stories in pop culture. We have tank tops that can be worn with a skirt, under a blazer, to the gym, and as pajamas. Please check us out at jordandene.com and all over the internet at Jordan Dene NYC. Hey, welcome to the Sartorial Geek podcast. I'm Jordan Ellis of Jordan Dene, and I'm here with Amanda-Rae Prescott. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi. We're going to talk about Poldark today. If anyone is up on the Jordan Dene shirt of the month, we have a Poldark quote for December. But we actually met at LI We met through Doctor Who things.
Yes,
I think.
way long time ago, like definitely at least 4 or 5
years ago. Yeah. And this is just like, do you have a thing for British TV shows, or is it just all the things that we happen to overlap in are like BBC stuff?
Okay, Doctor Who, for me, I've always been obsessed with period dramas, but then Doctor Who sort of brought me back to that because period drama fandom is the type of fandom where it's hard to connect with people because it's not quite, there's not really comic cons for it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a lot of, it's a mix of, younger people who are into following Doctor Who actors, and then you have the like literary society types and the more traditional book club type meetings, and even in some of the period dramas like Jane Austen have their own like culture of meetups and events. But Doctor Who essentially brought me back to trying to form a period drama centric community.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Poldark, when it came out in 2015 in America, the base of the fandom were essentially Aidan Turner's fans who were following him from The Hobbit and Being Human, which I'm sure Doctor Who fans watched back in the day when it was still on.
Dude, I love Being Human.
Exactly. So when it started, I think that's when most people sort of found their way to Poldark because they met the literary society types who were already there. And the sad thing about Poldark is that in the UK it's extremely popular, but in the United States, PBS does not have the money to advertise it the way it should be advertised, I believe, which is sort of I've taken that mission on.
Yeah, no, that's a great...
People think I'm an evangelizer for it. And I'm like, I kind of have to be because it's a show that doesn't get a lot of attention. And I think, and that's sort of, and also to a lot of the period dramas that PBS airs don't get enough attention. So I've kind of taken that on for myself.
Well, this is the perfect place to start then for anyone who maybe has never even heard of Poldark. I guess first of all, like what is the show? Like what's the main gist of it?
Okay, the main gist of it is this title character, Ross Poldark. He fought in the Revolutionary War on the wrong side. He was a redcoat. He comes back from the Revolutionary War to find his family life in shambles. His father died, leaving the estate a hot mess. His girlfriend that he thought he was going to marry ends up marrying his cousin. And he is pretty much broke because the father left him with debt and on his property and his mine. He is from Cornwall, in that part of England. That's what they're known for, mining. There's a lot of mining-related drama in the series, and that's where it starts. And from there, he has to rebuild his life, rebuild his business. He has to deal with this whole awkward situation that now his former flame is married to his cousin, and he has to find love elsewhere. Of course, there's the gist of where the shirt comes in is the shirt is a quote from Demelza, who becomes his wife, and she is essentially the heart and the soul of the show.
Awesome.
Too often people focus only on Ross, and I'm like, no, he has a counterpart. He has a counterpart that is equally as compelling on the show. And I think sometimes the fandom and even the media get too lost in the promo pictures of Aidan Turner shirtless or him looking really cute. And I'm like, But Demelza and Eleanor Tomlinson, who plays her, she's fantastic, and people need to show her more attention. And that's sort of why I picked a Demelza quote to pitch to you as a shirt of the month, because not only I just think the fandom is great, it just needs a little bit more of a feminist twist to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that. Like, when you see, because all the promo photos I've ever seen are him, which is fine. I mean, you're right. He, like, is very good looking, and he probably has a little more, like, celebrity, like, notice. So I get why they did it, but I think that's really cool that you're like, no, wait, there are other really good characters, too.
Yeah, they are. I think, and actually, Eleanor Tomlinson is becoming a celebrity in her own right. Like, she's in, right now, she's in Colette, which she's co-starring with Keira Knightley. I mean, she also has The War of the Worlds coming out, which is a BBC which the BBC is redoing the H.G. Wells novel.
That's awesome.
Yep, she's the star, and she's I think when the show first started, people only recognized Aidan, and she was sort of a supporting character actor type in England, but now, like, she's just as important as he is. And I think the media and some parts of the fandom are a little bit slow to that. So that's kind of why I am the way I am. I'm always pushing for more support for Eleanor Tomlinson and the other wonderful actresses that are behind the show. And actually, for people who are concerned about, like, being woke and supporting female-focused films and television, the screenwriter for Poldark is a woman. Her name is Debbie.
That's awesome.
I've actually met her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a very long story how that happened, but I met her earlier this year, and it was the best hour and a half of brunch.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't told too many people about it just because I didn't want people blowing me up asking how they can do that as well.
Right.
Mainly, it was
I get that.
It was basically fate. That was the only way I could describe it. And
that's so cool.
I got to talk to her about her process on the show and some of the decisions she's made and how her job of adapting a story. It's actually, Poldark is based on a series of novels written starting in the 40s through, actually the last one was right before the author died in 2003.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, they're novels. And the thing is, of course, when you have a TV show that's based on a book, you have the book fans who are really, obsessed with, I need to see that scene from page 128.
Right.
Then you have people who are like, I've never read books. And the thing with Poldark is that it was a series that was popular in England, but in America, it was out of print for years. And let's not even get started with who has it in translation and how complete it is.
Oh, gosh.
Balancing what people perceive of the books versus the people who've never picked them up before. So she has to walk a delicate tightrope. And of course, since it's a period drama, she has to deal with situations and events and attitudes in society that are not always ideal for a modern audience, and she has to walk this very fine tightrope of that. And
yeah, I'm not envious of that. I always think about that.
Yeah, as you know, with fandom, how people get when they think that the story is ruined now. There's a lot of that, and she pushes through anyway. They're actually filming the 5th and final season.
Oh, wow.
Right now. Like, the cast, I've seen they're on Instagram posting, hey, we're on the set. And I'm like, crap, it's almost over.
Yeah, that's so sad.
It's so sad, but I also have hope that Poldark will still live on, because in the age of Netflix, and Prime, actually Prime is mostly where you're going to find it because of PBS's contract with Amazon. Yeah, it's going to still live, and I think people are going to find it. They're selling the series to other countries, so new people are going to wander in anyway, and especially after the cast gets posted in bigger films.
Yeah. Well, this is the perfect time for anyone who, like, this show sounds like it would be up your alley. It's kind of great. Like, you can catch up now, binge it on Amazon, and then you can watch the final season when it comes out.
Exactly. And
which is great.
One of the cast members, Josh Whitehouse, who played a supporting role in seasons 3 and 4, he got casted on the Game of Thrones prequel.
Oh, rad.
Yeah, and mind you, that one press release gave more attention to the fact of Poldark's existence than the entirety of PBS's. Because literally every single article was like, "What is this Poldark?" And then people were like, "Wait, I mean, that's a show you're obsessed with, right?" I was like, "Yes." I thank you, HBO, for doing the promo that PBS.
I mean,
precisely $100.
Yeah, I get it. Like, I mean, PBS, I feel like if I see something advertised on that, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I never expected to be something I'll really like, which is terrible of me. Like, that's just a weird, awful, like, bias I have, but I get it.
Here's the thing, and part of it is, obviously, PBS's budget is a problem. I think the other thing of it is that it's very hard to market period dramas these days to people who are 30, and you have to have an in. And too often what the in becomes is if a drama is explicitly marketed as feminist or explicitly LGBT friendly or explicitly about people of color, people are not going to turn in. And what I like to say is Poldark's the kind of show where there's a whole bunch of elements people are going to be attracted to. There's a history factor to it because the post-Revolutionary War events in England are fascinating in its own right. There's also a romance factor with Ross and Demelza and the other supporting cast. Like, if people like ships, like, this is a shippy kind of show.
Very cool.
Ross and Demelza's best friends, Dwight and Caroline, have their own struggles, and if you like ships, that's a good thing. The show, I think, is doing a really good job of turning the female characters into more than just plot points. Not that the book wasn't like that, but in the show, Debbie Horsfield's making a concerted effort to turn scenes that were originally from one person's point of view and bringing it back to the woman.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so even one of the most controversial characters in the books, Elizabeth, who people often label in negative stereotypes, she found a way to give her a bit more sympathy, and also people have now appreciated her character more as just the antagonistic type. So that's so
awesome.
Yeah, and also the show does focus on some, in later seasons, Elizabeth's cousin Morwenna has a crisis that many women can relate to. And it's also dealt in a way, she has potentially triggering history, but the way the show deals with it is so not only sensitive to the needs of the audience today, but also bringing light to issues that in the past probably were buried. I don't really see period dramas dealing with things like domestic abuse too often. Poldark does a job on that topic as well.
Yeah, like you were saying, that's so impressive to be able to do that in a skilled way where you like react to things for the current audience, but also like be true to the time period that it's supposed to be placed in. Like that is very, very hard to do. So
it is very hard. And
that's impressive.
And there's one scene in particular that is extremely controversial because it was actually filmed before the Me Too movement happened. I think if it was different, I have a feeling it would have been approached in a different way. But you could tell from the script that Debbie tried her best to balance very carefully what the author wanted or expected, because this is written in 1953. So obviously that's what people considered okay versus not is changing rapidly.
Written in the 50s about a time even earlier. Exactly. So that's like two layers of that, which is a lot of that.
Crazy. Some of the characters even seem more modern than would have been possible in the period. So there's a lot of walking around eggshells in that regard. And I think, and as a drama, you can watch the entire series of Poldark and get the gist of the books without ever picking them up, which for an adaptation is pretty impressive, because a lot of times they're cut. Yes, of course, scenes were cut and stuff was shortened, and they don't have the budget for every single character.
I was going to say, that's just what happens.
There's a lot of villagers and miners who get cut, but the show's done such a fabulous job. And casting the right actors for the parts has been essential the entire way. Because obviously the main couples have to face, some adversaries, and and here's the thing too. If you want to talk about fantastic villain characters, Poldark has a ton of those for you guys.
Really?
For the fangirls who love villains, George Warlegan, who is Ross's main opponent, he's played by Jack Farthing, who is a fantastic. I'm not sure if I want to call him a character actor, but he pretty much nails the psychology of George Warlegan, and you want to punch George in the face him on the screen, but then you also kind of root for him. You're like, I like George's shady ways sometimes. I feel like a bad girl for supporting him sometimes. But yeah, the conflict between Ross and George is a fabulous one. And we also have some not so just blatantly villainy villains. Christian Brassington plays the evil Reverend Whitworth, and he's just beyond terrible. And he's like one of those, like, he's kind of like an Umbridge type.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay.
And then there's also in the later seasons we have Max Bennett, who plays Monk Adderley. And you're just like, if you want like a douchebag bro type to hate, he's right there for you.
That's awesome.
Just as the good guys are nice, we also have really horrible people.
No, that's good too, because I mean,
and you have some folks in the middle, and the entire cast sort of works. They take their own personalities and then add a little bit, and then add like context from the books and from the scripts that they pulled out of it, and to bring these characters to life. And that's why I love the show so much, and I wish more people would get into it. I don't just talk about this stuff on Twitter. I dress up as the main characters.
That might actually be the first time I heard of the show.
Yeah.
You cosplaying somewhere. There's a very good chance that's the first time I heard of it.
I make it a point to cosplay the Poldark characters at conventions because it's a conversation starter, especially when people are like, oh, Hamilton. I'm like, right era, wrong costume.
Yeah, you're close.
Disney, depending on they call me Merida because Demelza has red hair. So when I'm in anything green, people.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so it's a conversation starter, and also too, I'm like, hey, it's a show. You should watch it on Prime, and therefore more, just more attention for it. And also too, it's just been a lot of fun coming up with costumes that people. A lot of cosplayers, like, people have already figured out how to make the costumes. I have to do that work myself because
there's no one.
There's no one. There's a lot of Hamilton people, and there's a ton of Outlander-centric cosplay. But I mean, I do both. But with Poldark, I have been physically sitting there with the screen caps, figuring out patterns, figuring out how many inches should that skirt be, what waist should I use for the jacket. It's been a lot of.
Yeah, that's like a whole new challenge when you can't even go to like the cosplay Facebook group. Like, okay, I figured most of it out, but where are these buttons from? Like, you have to do it all.
There is a Facebook group for Poldark costuming, but here's the problem: a lot of the people who are into the show don't cosplay. They are sometimes you get the reenactor types who are like, oh, I watched a show, but the costumes are completely wrong for the era. And I tend to, as a cosplayer who focuses on like the way something looks on the screen, I often believe that criticizing the costumes just because they're not historically accurate all the way changes how the costume designer has transformed what was in the era to the characters on the show. Like, for example, and Howard Burton's an amazing job at this, actually. Oddly enough, he's worked for Doctor Who. So at one point, and he was at Galley a couple of years ago, so I had a friend of mine send him a card. And apparently I was the first person who ever sent him a card because
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it's about Poldark because people are like, they're all praising him for his work on Doctor Who, and he's like, wait, somebody sent me something about Poldark? Yeah,
that's so great.
It's me. So like they've adapted the 1780s, 90s, and early Regency era for the Poldark characters to show, first of all, there's economic drama in the book. Some of the characters are poor, or they're people who had money and are struggling. So the outfits reflect that struggle. Demelza's character comes out in her designs. Like, they always have her in earth tones because she's definitely the heart and soul type character, and her entire demeanor is down to earth. So that comes out of her costumes. And then you have
cool.
George Rolligan in dark colors and very, very severe type clothing. The evil vicar is always in the most ridiculous sort of French outfits because that's just his personality. He thinks he's way high and mighty, and he's not. So all those little changes they made to the period are reflected in the costumes, I think, and that's actually what brought me into the show more than anything else. Oddly enough,
that's really cool.
I actually learned how to sew after seeing Demelza get married. I'm like, I want her wedding dress.
No way.
Yeah, and I had to figure it out myself because there was no, like I said before, there was no instruction manual, and this is in 2015 when the show just came out in America. So we're talking, July 2015. There was no,
yeah.
So I was like, okay, I got a pattern, fixed up my grandma's sewing machine. 9 days later, came up with a dress. I don't know if I have pictures of it, but for a 9-day design, it didn't turn out, the mock-up didn't turn out so bad, and I fixed it and went back and fixed it and had her full wedding dress. And I still wear it today.
That's insane. I mean,
yeah,
I sew, and that's insane.
It can still wear. Yeah, I could still wear it. Might have to take it in a little bit because of weight loss, but other than that, it still works. Nothing's falling off of it.
That's so awesome.
From there, I just kept sewing all the different characters. Like my next project after I finish, I'm making another Demelza. I finished an Elizabeth. I have to make Caroline next, who Demelza's best friends. I have to work on her outfits because actually, if you want to talk about costume porn, so I should just say Caroline's outfits are amazing, and Gabriella Wilde, who actually has done modeling work outside of Poldark, you could tell because she's an heiress and she wears like the most amazing outfits ever, and her patterns are easy-ish, but it's getting the right fabric because since she has the money to look fly all the time, I'm like, that to save for that.
Yeah, that's the thing when you're cosplaying, like you do need the same level of quality fabric, and that can get so expensive.
Oddly, and a lot of the thing with the British period dramas, a lot of their stuff tends to come from, like, they have a lot of fabric mills to do one-off things, or they use a lot of stuff you'd use for your couch. They use a lot of fabric.
Okay.
I tried and failed to go to some of the places where they were using when I was in England to try to get some of the stuff they use, and I was like, they're like, yeah, you can have that for $200 a yard. I'm like,
I was gonna say, and unless, because I mean, I'm sure you do too, like, know some cosplayers who buy that, and it's so, like, just watching their process and the stress of cutting into a yard of fabric that costs that much is like, you have to be so sure of what you're doing.
The most expensive fabric I bought single-handedly was actually a Outlander piece. 1 yard was $99. I actually still have not cut into said yard because
it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And I'm like, what I'm probably going to do is I believe there's a spoonflower version of the pattern because it was like Turkish carpet material. I'm like,
wow, yeah,
like frame this and never act
right. Listen, I agree with that.
It might appear like I can't. I don't know how to. Or I might like use the entire piece to then like add to it, but like there's no way I'm cutting into that. It's just
no, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I
don't know how the cosplayers who do that all the time do it. I have some friends who do, and I'm always just like, how are you cutting that?
Yeah, the most expensive per yard I've used for Poldark specifically wasn't Poldark. I'll come in to think about it. I tend to use my budget for Poldark stuff tends to be about around 10 to 15 a yard because more than that is not often not accurate for the era, and also just for myself, wool gets really pricey. And
and if you need a lot of it, like for a full cosplay,
wool is just really, really expensive. So I tend to pause on the wool stuff. The most expensive stuff I've used was for actually Queen Victoria, because I cosplay the PBS miniseries as well. One of my dresses I used for that, the silk was $20 something a yard, and even then I was like, this is more than I've ever spent on a piece.
Yeah.
So it's like constantly, it cost like $150 for the 6 yards I used, and I still get like, I have to fix it now, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm probably going to buy more yardage. So I'm like,
yeah, totally. Do you only cosplay like period dramas?
Basically my cosplay profile right now is all the Doctor Who companions and then the period dramas.
Oh yeah, because I forgot I've seen you do Martha, right?
I had Martha. I have actually 2 Yasmin Khan outfits.
Nice.
Her shoes, I have not figured out her shoes, and I want her real jacket. I actually have 13 mostly done. I just have not like put it together. I tend to wear the 13 pieces by themselves, mixed in with other things.
I mean, because her outfits are awesome. You can actually wear them. It's like really cool.
Coat to work. I've worn the pants.
Yeah.
I have one of my Martha pieces is actually turns out the cosplayers are using the boots I used from Martha as a 13-year-old because her.
Oh, smart.
I was like, wait a second. I don't need to change it because Yaz's jacket is the same color as the boots anyway, so it works out very nicely.
That is so nice when you can reuse stuff. Do you ever get to reuse stuff with like period pieces or are they all so specific?
It's what I tend to reuse with the period pieces is actually the pattern, so I don't have to buy new.
Oh, smart.
There are one of Caroline's outfits actually is the same color tone as something I was planning for Hamilton. So what I'm probably going to do is when I get my money saved up is buy double so that way I can use part of the fabric for Hamilton as well.
That works out really well.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Especially patterning gets expensive. So I basically mix and match my pattern set. And often I'm like, okay, I see this dress, I made that, it's just a different color or a different, trimming. And I'm like, okay, that's how I reuse things often.
That is really, really smart. That's like a really good way to do it.
Construction parts more so than actual pieces. For Doctor Who, oftentimes it's my everyday clothing that I end up that my ass stuff was actually basically stuff I pulled out of my closet.
I love when that happens. That's so great.
Once upon a time coat here, something I used to wear to work there, and then all of a sudden I have so I was like, hey. I mean, I often troll eBay for what they call the screen accurate pieces, but for Yaz in particular, it's a little bit difficult because the jacket she's always wearing is one of those like $500 pieces, and I have to wait for it to pop up in my size. It's one of those.
That's fun.
Crap. I mean, the rest of her stuff, though, is fairly easy to assemble yourself because she has a jeans jacket. She has a green-gray blazer with some undershirts you can do yourself pretty quickly. So that's not so bad. At least the Doctor Who stuff keeps me... When I don't want to wear a stays or corset at cons, I can flip back to Doctor Who.
Perfect. Yeah, that is really nice to have a slightly more casual option.
Exactly. I have a casual option, and I have the crazy pants options.
So wrapping up with Poldark, if someone listens to this and they're like, oh my God, this sounds like my new favorite show. You said it's on Amazon Prime right now?
Yeah, it's on Prime right now.
Cool.
Netflix, I believe, only has the older seasons.
Okay.
If you know relatives who have the PBS Passport subscription, you can hit them up and get some of the exclusive stuff that they don't put on Prime.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the newest season is fully there yet. I should have checked that before I record this podcast.
No, that's good. And I mean, I always shows move around all the time anyway. So depending on when you're listening, that may not even be true anymore. But
because I think what PBS's contract with Amazon is that they put the full episodes out there for their members first, and then Prime will release it later on.
Cool.
Because Prime actually has a long-term contract with Poldark's production company, Mammoth Screen. They have actually several. Yeah, they have most of their dramas up there right now. Victoria, which is again with Jenna Coleman, that's another awesome.
Yeah.
They also have a bunch of the murder mystery things. So if you like, so there's a whole. They have most of them. It's just a matter of they may force you to pay to rent it, but I promise you, it'll at least for season 4, because I think season 4 just ended on PBS. It's worth it if it's the older seasons are free though, so you only have to pay for it the very.
So you can get in and get
like
the
also there are DVDs out there, so you can always get them from the library as well. That's another option for the budget conscious.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And then if someone watches it and wants to talk to a fan, are you hanging out online anywhere that people can come chat with you?
Oh, of course. My Twitter, I'm just going to open up Twitter for a second, make sure I'm spelling my name and everything right. My personal Twitter account is Amanda-Rae Prescott, all one word. I run my mouth under all the time. Sorry, dropped something. I have a podcast regarding Poldark and the other shows that Mammoth Screen produces. The podcast is called This Week in MS Drama's Fancast. Actually,
perfect.
Oddly enough, this week I noticed they reposted one of my episodes, and I'm like, thank you guys.
That's awesome.
It was a review of their newest drama, Vanity Fair, which is coming out on Prime on the 21st.
Sweet. So if other people love the same kind of shows, you're a great person to follow.
Their catalog is essentially a mix of the period dramas and the crime stuff. Occasionally they'll do sci-fi, like The War of the Worlds, which is coming out early next year. David Morrissey was in another one of the productions, which is more sci-fi inclined. The City in the City, which is on BritBox right now, I believe. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that podcast kind of covers every week. I either talk about what's brand new or what's coming up, or hey, here's an old program that I went back in the archives and watched, and here's why you should watch it again. So
I love that.
Yeah, the podcast can be reached. I don't have a webpage for it right now, just because I don't have enough followers to support paying more than like the free accounts on everything for it.
Totally get that.
Yep. On the podcast can be reached at TWIMSD Fancast. The SoundCloud is This Week in MS Drama's Fancast. I have the SoundCloud page. I have not started a Facebook for it yet. Tumblr, I had a Tumblr, but as we all know, Tumblr has gone completely haywire.
Tumblr is making some changes right now.
Yeah, not that Poldark or any of these dramas would be classified as porn. The problem is a lot of people are just leaving the site in protest, and also stuff got deleted with the bots running amok and flagging art and flagging cosplay photos that were not even.
I was gonna say, I feel like it seems like that's one of the biggest problems. That it's flagging all kinds of stuff.
As it is my blog focusing on the Poldark costumes, it was called the Poldark. It's called Poldark Costuming Project at Tumblr.com. I have to probably move it somewhere else, because between people not visiting the site anymore and also the cosplay stuff getting flagged unnecessarily, I'm thinking about moving it. But for people who can still see it, I fleshed out my attempts at making costumes, and also what the costume designers did versus what a woman would wear at the time.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's in slow progress too, because this most recent season 4, has moved into the Regency era, and I'm not as much of a Regency expert as the earlier time, which is called the Georgian era. I hang out so much in the Georgian era that Regency research has been a bit harder for me to get into. But once, hopefully, I can find somewhere else to put this.
Well, and if people follow you on Twitter,
exactly,
you'll post. Okay, cool.
Posted when I move it. Most likely, I'll end up on WordPress. That's the other thing too with moving things. Tumblr was completely free hosting. WordPress, you have to pay at some point, so it's sort of like that's kind of the struggle. So, and also too, since it's such a small fandom, I'm not sure if it's worth it in that sense to pay for things that maybe. Yeah, I do want it to be out there. At the same time, it's like the audience return is not as guaranteed as, say, something like Doctor Who based.
Yeah, the numbers are really different. I totally get that.
The fandom, in terms of fandom, I know people are concerned about the attitude of fandom. I've met some fabulous women in fandom. The downside is that because this is a period drama, I do have to kind of warn people that there are gatekeeper types, and oddly enough, they're not men. It's women who are, to be polite, who are white women who are above 40 to 45 years old. So sometimes they carry with them more conservative attitudes toward things. I would advise, if you're really getting into the fandom, to contact me first before you join a Facebook group, because I have some horror stories out there of, I'm gonna be real, people. Like I have horror stories of being bullied in this fandom because of the fact that I am a woman of color and I'm also only 29, and people think, there are some women who I've found, unfortunately, they think because I am younger than their daughter that they can talk and treat you in a different way.
Yeah, that's always so, like, I mean, it's sad and disappointing when you're just trying to enjoy a thing together. And
it's difficult because I feel like, yes, there have been probably times I've screwed up with people, but also too, it's very hard coming from a fandom like Doctor Who, where there's some basic knowledge and basic respect for people's differing opinions. And also too, in Doctor Who fandom, it's okay to say the word feminist. Like, I've had people in Poldark fandom being like, I don't know what a feminist is, and or even worse, I don't like feminists. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Whoa.
So all right. It's that kind of thing. But I'm not saying,
an interesting place to start from. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I have run into some people, some really, really, I've actually found a circle of progressive-minded fans who we also love period drama, and we love talking about how period dramas can be still relevant to society today, and it's that part of fandom has been fantastic. And a cosplayer community, usually on the historical side, has been really awesome to interact and talk to. So yeah, there are definitely some great pockets of wonderfulness in fandom. I just probably would advise avoiding the large Facebook groups for Poldark fandom.
Yeah, I mean, I was also gonna say I'm really sad that you had so many negative experiences, but thank you for sharing them with other people and for being available.
I've been sort of, I think I put myself out there specifically for the purpose of changing the culture in the fandom a bit and telling people, well, changing in terms of, first of all, being visible and out there in the first place, because I feel like this is one of those things where people kind of keep it quiet to themselves and they don't realize that there's people, if you reach out, that are also into what you like, and also to countering this kind of regressive attitude with showing that, hey, you could be a visible minority and still be into something that doesn't seem as, on the face of it, as progressive as you would think. Like, for example, because a lot of times people just think period dramas are just only for white people. I'm like, no, there are stories in there that are universal. You can identify with characters who don't look like you. But I think again, that's the thing with the fandom, where the fandom needs to go is in terms of what I work on and try to it's not all the time I get it right. It's putting myself out there as a member of a visible minority to say, hey, this is something you can get into too. Because I will say this, when I've met Poldark fans in real life, I have had very good experiences with that for the most part. Obviously there are times where we have personality conflicts, but I've had pretty good experiences at meetups. A lot of times when it's the internet, people feel like, they don't have to, they have no filter. Or you have people who are in pure drama fandom because they want everything like the good old days and not just like,
oh yeah,
so it's like,
that's not great.
Exactly. So it's like, I try to put myself out there as a caveat. I just want to, I don't want to be completely dishonest to people and say that everything is sunshine and roses. But at the same time, if you want to help me,
I was gonna say, I appreciate.
It's a lot of this stuff is just showing up and being visible. Because, for example, when I first started blogging about PBS fandom on PBS shows on Twitter, back in the Downton Abbey days, I've been at this blogging on and off since then. People were like, "Oh my goodness, it's like you're a black woman, you like PBS." I was like, "Yes, I do," and there's people like us out there, and it turned in, and networking from there. I developed a following because I would, not only just post jokes about the shows, but people were like, "Oh my goodness, somebody like me is into this," and it turned in Outlander fandom. I actually found a circle. A blogger started what was called the Blacklanders, and we're all women of color. We discuss the show, and we've gained massive following from putting ourselves out there as that. And that's kind of pretty much just half the battle. It's showing.
Yeah.
Showing up is half the battle, and telling people, hey, listen, I know you have your opinion, but your opinion is based on some form of ism. That's kind of essentially half the battle, because a lot of times people never had these ideas challenged before, and that's kind of what, it may not work all the time, but that's pretty much sort of my philosophy, is putting myself out there in the first place can then foster change.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing that. I think that is amazing. And I think thank you for putting yourself out there as someone who is that being your mission. And I think if anyone else is in the same position and is nervous about doing that on their own, I think it's really cool that you are out there and people can come talk to you and you can.
Granted, I'll tell you, I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring things out.
Right. But at least,
I have a feeling this is probably what I face is probably something that other people in fandom face when either you have a niche fandom with not people in it, or you have a fandom where it's dominated by people who are not as tolerant of modern progressivism as you might be. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of experience with that, and I welcome people to message me on Twitter and reach out in that regard. My at reply box is always open, especially since I work in social media for a living. So I'm always online.
That's awesome. And I'm sure there are people listening who can relate to all of those things. And I appreciate that you're putting yourself out there as someone that if you're feeling that way, you don't have to be completely alone doing that anymore, which is amazing.
The pretty picture part of my social media, all the pretty costume. If you like my pretty costume photos, I have an Instagram too. It's Amanda Poldark, all one word. Sometimes I don't always remember to post things on there, but if you want to see all the pretty costume photos, they're all up there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm gonna go binge this show now.
Thank you. And also, that's kind of making me more than just the, we're forming fandom part. It's the, hey, these shows exist part,
and they're good, and you should watch them.
They're awesome. So yeah, that's kind of, because I think a lot of times with Poldark and the other Mammoth Screen shows is that because they are Amazon and sometimes Netflix and other people buy the licenses, they don't really promote the show. They just kind of just there. And I'm like, there's no discussion. Like, you're gonna and PBS has, again, PBS's demographic is more so less social media inclined. So it's sort of like they have an episode, but then they don't really have like the whole discussion and community building part of it because their audience is focused a little bit away from social media and more toward traditional television programming. So that's another reason I put myself out there. I'm like, hi, if you've liked last night's Endeavor, which is a crime drama that Mammoth Screen produces. I'm like, hey, you liked Endeavor, right? And you could talk about it with people, and that's kind of why podcast and everything to I just launched a Poldark just because, again, it's kind of out of all the period dramas right now that has kind of the biggest social media following.
That's awesome, though.
And of course, for the Doctor Who folks who are following Jenna over there as well, it's coming out in January, so I'm really excited for another season of talking to people about it.
That's awesome, and I hope that keeps growing and more people keep joining the fandom.
I hope to see, because like the last time I checked my SoundCloud, I had 45 clicks on it. So I'm like, I hope I can get into the hundreds. Like that's
totally.
Mammoth Screen, noticing that it exists, I'm really hoping that I can work on even something as cool as like interviewing cast members of the shows I watch. Like,
that would be awesome.
Because there are period drama blogs out there, but I think many of them are focused toward the more historical research stuff or the audience that is less social media inclined. I bring my millennial enthusiasm and way of posting information into it, just as a counterpart to what is currently out there. And maybe in a couple of years I can monetize it. It'd be great. But right now I'm just kind of doing this for fun, because speaking my fangirling into a microphone is oddly enough more satisfying than typing it right now. So
I get it. Well, that is so awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I hope that you inspired some people to go check out, if this is there is a whole world of shows that you may have never heard of.
Exactly.
Thank you for opening
people to reach out to me on Twitter once this podcast is posted.
Yeah, for suggestions and recommendations and stuff, for sure.
So many of those, and too often I'm like, oh, I have people who don't like. Most of my friends are like, oh, you're so into it, but I'm like, but I'm not really sure about period drama. And I'm like, but please
let me help you.
or again, it's like, I'll do a lot of this. Again, that's another thing too. It's like people think there's only like one or two types of period dramas out there. I'm like, no, there is a whole scope of things, and it's more than just what your aunt watches.
You're so right.
Shows your aunt watches.
Yeah, no, you're so right. There really is a whole world of like very different stories.
It's more than that stuff. Like, it's great. It is great stuff. You just gotta like dig through Prime and Netflix to find it.
Well, which is why it's good to have a resource like you who does all the hard work and
the hard work of figuring out what's what, and also, trust me, the tracking what shows end up where and when is a job in itself.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It is a job, because it's so confusing now with all these different streaming services and everybody fighting for attention, and also BBC and ITV in England they'll be like, hey, we'll put out something, and all of a sudden I look at the US release date, it's 6 months from now, and I'm like,
yep.
Thanks there's a great thing called VPN, but then I'm also like, then I'm also like, okay, when the VPN, when it finally does come to America, I'm always a fan of like making sure that I watch the show legally, so that way the productions can get money for future things. That's also my other main thing. I'm like, I want to make it's like, yes, you can watch early online, but like make sure you circle back when the DVDs come out, or whenever Prime drops something or Netflix does, like circle back because, it's
getting the numbers to line up and like make people know they're actually watching is really important.
Oh, totally. And that's when new things will be produced. Exactly. That's kind of my goal for it.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone checks out your podcast and hits you up on Twitter for show recommendations.
Wait to get my shirt of the month.
Yeah, it should be there soon. It's in the mail.
Can I tell you when I saw that? I was like, it's my idea finally. Because that's the other thing too with Poldark. We don't really have a lot of merchandise. So I was like,
yeah, that's true.
And I'm probably...
Well, we have one design, which is great.
One thing I might actually get is, I was thinking about getting it as a cell phone case because
that's awesome.
I'm like, cell phone case, that'd be great. Because like I do have my case is starting to look beat up, but I'm like, I might have to switch it. But yeah, for now, I'm just really excited that thank you for giving me the opportunity to promote my favorite thing. Because
and thanks for the idea.
I'm a little bit fed up with me right now. And we're like, can Amanda shut? Is it PBS to promote this? I'm like, no. Although low key, I wish I was. But no. But I'm like, but no. It's called I just want to find new friends. That's kind of how I put it. I think I'm like, I just want to find new friends who are into this too, so I can discuss things with people. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I mean, that's fandom, right? You exactly. Like want to find as many other people who love the same thing as you as possible. So hopefully you can find some more people to connect with.
I thank you so much, Jordan.
Yeah, and thank you guys all so much for listening. If you enjoy our podcast and want to leave us a rating or a review, that would help us out so much. If you want to find other people who are into the same things as you are, you can head to our website and click on the community tab, and we have all kinds of little topics and discussion boards over there. And if you want to support us, our Patreon is up. We have a bunch of weird and cool rewards. So have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.